Welcome, everybody, to Tyrone Bowman Live. It was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity that we saw a man such as Reverend Jesse L. Jackson. I think he embodied the message of the late Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. by being a man of action. And as a result of that, America's history has been changed forever. And without a doubt, the body of evidence of his life's work will stand the test of time. The celebration of life service for Reverend Jackson, it spanned several cities. It spanned over a course of several days. Presidents, nobles, and what I'm doing, I'm bringing the highlights of the service, and I'm presenting them here on this channel so that individuals have an opportunity to experience for themselves. And it would have just been too much to try to put a whole service on here, you know. Well, okay, today I'm going to start with this highlight. Former Vice President and presidential candidate Kamala Harris spoke at the service. So we're going to start with her, and then we're going to see where we're going to go from here. So let's find out how it's going to pan out.
Jackson believed that women deserved equal pay. Reverend Jackson believed women deserved equal opportunity. Reverend Jackson believed that women should hold the highest roles and positions in the land. The first woman, the first African-American woman, the first Asian American woman, Vice President Kamala.
Excuse me, we have the captions up here, and I don't want them, so we have to restart it.
Reverend Jackson believed that women deserved equal pay. Reverend Jackson believed women deserved equal opportunity. Reverend Jackson believed that women should hold the highest roles and positions in the land. The first woman, the first African-American woman, the first Asian American woman, Vice President Kamala Harris.
Good afternoon, everyone. Mrs. Jackie, and to the entire Jackson family, on behalf of Doug and my family, we pray with you as we did a couple weeks ago in your home, and we thank you. I thank you. So let me just say, I predicted a lot about what's happening right now. Not into saying I told you so, but we did see it coming. But what I did not predict is that we would not have Jesse Jackson with us right now to help us get through this. And this afternoon has been such a beautiful remembrance of his spirit, his life, and his faith. And in a way that Reverend Al talked about it and so many others have, I do think of this afternoon as what it is doing for me to renew my faith in what is possible, fueled by the hope that Jesse Jackson so often reminded us of. I'm reminded of a passage in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 7, verse 7. Ask, and it will be given to you. Seek, and you will find. Knock, and the door will be opened to you. And so from a young age, we know that Reverend Jackson saw that the doors had been closed to the millions of people across our nation and throughout the world who were otherwise so deserving. And they were doors, of course, to opportunity, to equity, to justice, to freedom. And so he dedicated his life, as we all know, to breaking down those barriers. So when we are speaking of these doors, I will share with you that as a child, I was raised that when you see a closed door, you must knock and wait to be invited in. What life has taught me is that if that invitation is not offered, and if that door remains shut, even after repeated attempts to knock on said door, sometimes you have no choice but just to kick that door open.
Most homeowners don't fear selling their home.
Ladies and gentlemen, pardon the interruption. I'll take it back to the point where she was speaking, but I can't let these commercials come through. I don't want them on my channel.
Is that if that invitation is not offered, and if that door remains shut, even after repeated attempts to knock on said door, sometimes you have no choice but just to kick that door open. Reverend Jackson was impatient. He did not waste time waiting. Even when the doors in front of him were barred and bolted, even if those on the other side hesitated or even ignored him, he always devised a way through. Jesse Jackson was a strategist. He was one of the most effective community and political organizers of our time. And he was the founder, I think most would agree, the founder of the modern progressive coalition. Think about the work that he did. In addition to the strength of his spirit and his determination, the leadership of Jesse Jackson was defined by his vision, dare I say his ambition, to tap into what otherwise had been untapped in terms of the potential of a coalition of seemingly different people who could be brought together around shared values and ideals and experience. That's what Jesse Jackson did. He modeled that for so many of us. Over the past half century, that coalition strategy, his methodology, has been the heartbeat for so many movements about progress in our country. Those movements born out of struggle, but resulting in progress. Think about, and it was mentioned, the women leaders that he elevated, like the self-described colored girls, who have been a driving force behind so many campaigns that have been about freedom and justice. Throughout his life, Reverend Jackson reminded us that the many fights for freedom are interconnected. He saw not only the interconnection, but the interdependence of the various struggles for justice and dignity on behalf of Black Americans, Native and Asian Americans, Latino, LGBTQ Americans, and Americans with disabilities. That was Jesse's rainbow, and he continued to grow it. He gave us the language, the rainbow, to understand, as has been said, the beauty that comes after the storm when we see what is possible and what can be unburdened by what has been. As he once said, when a barrier falls for one of the locked out, it opens the doors for all. And that is what he told me and what he taught me. and how he inspired me. I was a student at Howard University. Well, you know, when Jesse Jackson was one of the leaders of the anti-apartheid movement, and me and my classmates would go out on the mall every weekend and protest, looking at Jesse Jackson as a model of what that movement should and could have been. I was a law student then in 1988 when Jesse Jackson decided to run again. I was the first Black woman elected district attorney of San Francisco. I was the first Black woman elected district attorney in the state of California in 2004, when I created one of the first in the nation initiatives as a prosecutor that was about getting jobs and counseling to those who had been in the criminal justice system. And at the time, the powers that be told me I was not supposed to be doing that. They said, "Why are you letting people out of jail when you're supposed to put them back in?" Jesse Jackson spent a lot of time in the Bay Area. Many of you may know. I saw Butch Wing here. And Butch, together with Jesse Jackson, would visit with me during those earliest days of my elected career to give me the support and the confidence and the initiative to think about how, in a position such as being DA, I could continue the idea about what it means to build coalition around a group of people whose dignity must be seen and the resources that must be put into them. Jesse Jackson, from my first elected position to when I ran with Joe Biden for Vice President of the United States, and when I became the Democratic nominee for President of the United States, always told me and convinced me that everything that we were doing is possible. And so I just want to share what I brought today. I brought with me two momentums from Jesse Jackson's campaign that I have saved since I was a student. So one is this button that reads Jesse Jackson 88. The other, some of you who were around at the time may remember, is this button. I will read it to you, and pastors, please forgive me. It reads as follows, all caps. Damn straight, exclamation point. It's time for a Black presidential candidate. That was a Jesse Jackson pin from those days. And just a beautiful example of his determination, his sense of humor, but his ability to see what can be unburdened by what has been. And I thank you, Jesse Jackson, for your service to our nation and the world. Well done, good and faithful servant. Well done. Thank you.
Yes. Yes. She is a first-class act. She eulogized him with love, with grace, with compassion. And she acknowledged that without him, there would be no her. That's a lesson we can all learn in humility in life. And I'm going to say this about Kamala Harris. America has not seen the last of her. She will be back. In what capacity? I don't know. But she will be back. Oh, you don't like that, and you don't want to hear it. Just because you have a group of people that are filled with vitriol and hatred and bitterness and racism and that deep-seated Jim Crow bitter hate, who are the descendants from the slave owners, that doesn't stop us from moving forward in this nation. Hate only hates the hater. It doesn't hate the people that you hate. Hate people do hateful things, but it will not stop a movement. Harris will be back. I wouldn't be surprised if a huge petition was circulated throughout the nation requesting her to run again. I wouldn't be surprised. And one day, I don't know if it's going to be her, but one day America is going to have a woman president. She's going to be qualified, overqualified, and more qualified than most of the men. More articulate, more reasonable, more understanding. And she will probably do a more effective and better job than most of these men. And if you all think America is going on the right path, keep believing in fantasies. Up next, a wonderful performance by Jennifer Holliday at the Celebration of Life service for the late Reverend Jesse Jackson. I'm looking for it now. I'm going to pull it up, and I'm going to play that as well. What I'm doing, I'm pulling selective things. It's no particular order, but I just want to bring it. Jennifer Hudson. Okay, I finally found it. Let me get it up. So at this Jennifer right here, because I want to get a good one of her. I don't want any old raggedy one. I think I found a good one. From the, I forgot to give credit to the video for C-SPAN. C-SPAN I used their video for Kamala Harris. And this one is taken from the Jonathan Des Verney channel. So Jennifer Hudson. Let me get this set up, and I'll play it in 1 second. And here she is, ladies and gentlemen, singing at the Celebration of Life service for the Reverend Jesse Jackson. You're watching Tyrone Bowman Live.
And it began this way. I was born by the river in the little tent. Just like the river I've been running ever since. It's been a long, a long time coming, but I know change gonna come. Well, I go to my brother, and I say, brother, help me, please. But when I go to my dear brother, he winds up knocking me back out on my knees. Big times when I thought I wouldn't last for long. but somehow we're able, y'all, to carry on. It's been a long time coming. The change gonna come. Listen,
Too hard
see
living.
there's been times when I thought I wouldn't last for long, but right now I'm able, y'all, to carry on. It's been a long, long time
Jennifer Hudson, without a doubt, is one of the greatest voices alive today. And I remember watching her when she was on the American Idol and she lost to Kelly Clarkson. And just because you don't win American Idol doesn't mean that you can't succeed. Always remember that. Up next, Reverend Al Sharpton. We're going to hear from him. Because I know he had a lot to say. Oh, pardon me, mispronounced the man's name. Let me get it right. I don't have a staff, so I'm doing this all by myself. All right, I found the video for Reverend Sharpton. Let's put him up on the screen here. And this video is courtesy of C-SPAN that I'm going to play about Reverend Sharpton. As he's speaking, him and Jesse Jackson were extremely close. All right, let's get Reverend Al in full gear here, because this ain't it. Hold on, ladies and gentlemen. I'll get the brother up. Okay, we got him. Let's get rid of these closed captions here. The one and only, Reverend Al Sharpton.
Welcome the one and only Reverend Al Sharpton, after which Dr. Jim Zogby will come. Please welcome them.
Thank you. I've heard all through our service, first giving honor and regard to the Jackson family and to the matriarch of liberation, Mrs. Jacqueline Lavinia Jackson. As I listened and thought about, everyone quoted the slogan of Reverend Jackson, but I want to, in my few minutes, and if you take Brother Biden's minutes and other minutes, I come out of the Jackson School of Thought. They told me 4 minutes, which means 8 in Jacksonian language. I don't want us, Yusef, to leave here having mourned and then mock what Jackson was all about. We're sitting here acting like our own lack of rising to what he wanted us to be is the reason we are sitting on the brink of some of the most serious reconstruction behavior being rescinded that we've seen in modern times. To leave here and not follow an assignment would not be what Jesse Jackson taught us. To make us feel good, we went to Jesse Jackson's funeral, and that we said nice things about Mrs. Jackson. But people at the same time are killing illegal immigrants. People at the same time are cutting public funding. At the same time, Affordable Care Act is not being renewed and seniors have to deal with premiums. Don't sit here so holy and sanctified and act like you have no assignment yourself. Jesse and Jacqueline Jackson did this. Do you realize they were born, he in South Carolina, her in Florida, when it was against the law? I'm not talking about a custom. Against the law to ride in Southern buses. Against the law to use a toilet downtown. Against the law for you to eat in certain restaurants. And these two Southern-born, raised in Southern American apartheid, went on and put two of their sons in Congress, broke down barriers of voting. They did theirs. They planted a platform that led to an empowerment, and we are the generations behind them that have returned to those that were against us being empowered. Oh, they went against the Southern bigots in the overalls. We're dealing with manicured Fifth Avenue bigots. Yep. I remember I was 12 years old. I was a boy preacher in the Church of God in Christ. Bishop Sheard knew my bishop, Bishop Washington. Bishop Washington, my mother was concerned I was getting into politics. They brought us to Reverend William Jones. His daughter's traveling with us. And Reverend Jones introduced me to Jesse Jackson. I became his youth director in New York at 13. I liked Reverend Jackson because he was a little hipper than the older preachers. He was 27, I was 13 by the time I became youth director. So he was like a father figure to me. When I got about 40, he said, quit calling me father, call me big brother. But what I liked about it is that he didn't have the background others had. He didn't come from generations of preachers. So those of us that didn't have that pedigree, didn't have that background, could relate. And he talked about economics, and he talked about discipline. He would not let us make excuses. I would call him and say we're doing certain things and they're attacking us in the press. He said, oh, another pity party. He never cared when we felt we were being unfairly attacked. But I never will forget 1994. We went to Dakar, Senegal, and James Meeks and Jesse Jr. and I had dinner with him that night. And that's where he said, Al, Meeks, Jesse Jr., y'all are my disciples. And we said, disciples? And for years, we joked each other. I'd cover the room and Junior say, here's disciple number one. And Meeks. But discipleship meant you carried forth the vision. The next day, he took me on the ferry to Goree Island, Mrs. Jackson. And on Goree Island, he showed me where the slave camps were. And I will never forget, he said, Al, you see what that artifact is? I said, what's that? He said, they call it the door of no return. When When you go through that door, you either made it to America to slavery or you died in the Atlantic. The door, no return. But I talked to him about 3 years ago, and I reminded him, I said, remember when you brought me to the door of no return? He said, yeah. I said, well, we did return. We returned the President of the United States, Barack Obama. We returned the Vice President, Kamala Harris. We returned with businessmen. They thought they sent us as slaves. We came back as global liberators. The problem is that too many of us did not join the movements that sponsored us. And there was a breakout in 2024 called Negro Amnesia, where you forgot where you came from and forgot how you got where you got. Therefore, they're trying to take back everything you have.
All right, this feels almost illegal to know, but are we...
Sometimes people have to be reminded because too many people are complacent, especially the elitists, the black elite in America. They're too complacent. They don't want to fight. They don't want to stand up. They're too complacent. And that's why a new generation is being raised up. You catch my drift?
Businessmen, they thought they sent us as slaves. We came back as global liberators. The problem is that too many of us did not join the movements that sponsored us. And there was a breakout in 2024 called Negro Amnesia, where you forgot where you came from and forgot how you got where you got. Therefore, they're trying to take back everything you have. I asked Michael Eric Dyson, our prominent scholar, where in history is this? He said, we always go one step forward and two backward. Well, here we are now. The problem is not Trump. The problem is us. We are allowing ourselves to be lowered and our children to feel inferior because you don't have an I am somebody person. You got our artists calling our women bees. Our others calling us niggers. What happened to us? What happened to black and proud? What happened? I'm gonna vote. What happened? Ain't gonna let nobody turn me around. What happened to us? We believed our way, and we had the faith to do it. And that's why my challenge to you is that we should do what Jesse Jackson did. Not look at what you can see, but look at what you can believe even if you can't see it. Sitting up here talking about, oh, they got all the power, we can't win. We gotta win. Because they put the seeds of victory in us. If we just nurture them and grow, Hakeem Jeffries be the Speaker of the House. If we keep on winning, we'll get the Senate back. If we keep winning, we can save health care for our grandmamas. If we keep winning, we can bring about criminal justice reform. If we keep winning, we can have 2 Jackson boys in the Congress. We didn't come this far to turn around now. Reverend Sharp, pastor fellowship, I was talking to him. And I said, Reverend Sharp, I was saying, Reverend Sharp, Jesse Jackson talked about keep hope alive. And I met a man that Reverend Jackson admired called Adam Clayton Powell when I was a kid. And Adam had a slogan called Keep the Faith, Baby. And I'd like, Tyler Perry's here. He canceled something to be with us. I'd like one day Tyler do a whole thing on it, Adam Powell, because there's a little risque side to Adam that Tyler know how to handle that kind of stuff. And between Jesse Jackson's slogan of Keep Hope and Adams' slogan of Keep Faith is what I challenge us and the Jackson family to do. Because my mother told me in my engine, I had two gears, hope and fear. Hope is that I hope a better day will come. Hope is I won't give up. Hope is that we come this far by faith. But she said, but sometime it's going to get dreary. And that's when your gear goes to faith. Faith is the substance of things you hope for, not hope for. The evidence of things not seen. Faith is when the doctors give up, but you hold on for another doctor. Faith is when you got bills to pay and no money to pay them. Faith is when they write you off and when they write you back. We come this far by faith, leaning on the Lord. Or they getting ready to celebrate the 250th anniversary of the country, but we were not free in 1776.
Hold on, I'll answer your question.
It is not our celebration. We got here in 1619. We worked 246 years and never got paid, but we are still here. We come this far by faith. It was against the law to read and write. It was against the law to marry, but we come this far by faith. I don't care what they do in Washington. I care what we do in the community. We beat people bigger than Trump. We fought people harder than them if we stand up and be what we're supposed to be. Private sector saying they're going to end diversity, equity, and inclusion. Sherem Sharp, we started Wall Street. Wall Street.
We did that.
Dealing with diversity.
We did that.
So you don't want a diversity in your boardroom, then don't have a diversified consumer base.
Come on now. We did that.
So what I'm urging you to do is leave here with some Jackson fire in you. Not just a program book, but to say I see the things the way they are, but I'm going to turn and change them. Have some Jackie Jackson fire saying I'm going to raise my kids beyond your expectation. I'm going to rise up anyhow. But Reverend, it looks bad now. Look at Iran. Look at what's going on in Minnesota. Look on. Yeah, but I was raised by them to realize that after storms, if we do the right thing in the storm, if we organize, if we register, if we do what we're supposed to do, there's always a rainbow coming out. The rainbow don't show until the storm is over. The rainbow gonna come out in November. The rainbow gonna come out in 28. We're gonna fix these tricks in 26 and march through the gates in 28. We didn't come this far to turn around now. We won't go back. We won't go back. We won't go back.
To answer your question, and I will give you an honest answer. It's not about having a bigger government or a smaller government. It's about people understanding and knowing who they are. If a government is not effective, what good is the government? If the government is going to suppress people, and if if individuals are going to be limited as to what they can do, I grew up in the hood. I want you to hear me, cop, and I want you to hear me well. I grew up in the hood, in the heart of racism and bigotry and segregation. I lived around it every single day in Philadelphia. But it never stopped me. It didn't stop me then, and it won't stop me now. Because the foundation that my life is built upon is far greater than one person's narrow-minded opinion of what they think about me. I don't put faith in a government. I don't put faith in politicians. And listen up, ladies and gentlemen, for those of you who will see this video later. Everything that's going on in America has happened before. It's just a different time, different players, a different stage, but it's the same old hate, the same old bigotry, the same old racist. This is nothing new. Reagan, they argued about big government, small government. Clinton, big government, small government. Obama, big government, small government. How about if you have individuals who operate and know who they are? You don't have to beg your government to do anything for you. Do it for yourself. Let me say that again. You don't have to beg your government to do anything for you. Do it for yourself. The one thing I've learned, every time somebody told me I couldn't do something, I said, damn that. I'll do it anyway. I'm a non-conventional thinking, speaking, acting person. I go against the grain. I just finished, not this semester, but the last semester, so I'm a law student. In the history aspect of it, we had to pick a topic of someone. I picked Reverend Jesse Jackson and his historic presidential campaign. Professors didn't want me to write about it. I said, I have the right to choose what I want to write about. And that's who I wrote about and got an A+. I don't let nobody think for me and tell me what I can and cannot do. When I come before this camera, I come here as an independent, thinking, consciously awakened, aware individual. And if you put your faith in government, you're going to be disappointed because government is run by people who are fallible. They are human beings. They're men and they're women. They're not demigods and they're not Almighty God. And that's the bottom line. Stop being scared because they got guns and missiles and violence. The greatest of them have fallen. Look at all the dictators and authoritarians in the world. In times past, I'm a student of history. I love history because what has been done before is happening right now. Let me talk about Alexander the Great. There was no one greater than Alexander the Great who conquered the world by the time he was, 30? He was in his 30s when he died. With all his goals and his triumphs and with all of his plans and his grandeur. And he died like an ordinary man. So the question is not smaller government or bigger government. The question is, what are you going to do for yourself? That's why I like talking to you, Comp. I do. What are you going to do for yourself? Y'all should be with me sometimes when I'm not in front of this camera and I'm dealing with my people off camera. I don't play with them. I give it to them straight. A lot of things I want to say, I won't say it here. But you catch me off camera, I don't play with them. And especially my generation. I tell them straight up, stop your whining, stop your crying, stop being lazy. Stop spending all your time doing nothing. You have a mind. Learn how to use it before it's too late. And to my brothers and sisters that are locked up in prison, the only thing they have is your body. They don't have your mind. Don't give them your mind and don't give them your soul. Your body is what's in shackles and chains and handcuffs. But your mind can be free to think, free to be creative, free to be productive. You can come out of there as a scholar if you choose to, or anything you desire to be, to do, and have, like the late Reverend Ike had to say. All right, that's enough of that. Up next, all the way from South Africa, Cyril Ramaphosa. I'm getting ready to pull his video up. You know, men and women from all walks of life came to pay tribute to Reverend Jesse Jackson, his legacy, to his wife, because he couldn't have done it without her. It wasn't just him. They were a team, collectively working together. Dr. King could have never done the things that he did without the support of Coretta. Oftentimes, society wants to hurl the man, and but what about his co-laborer? The most motivating, inspiring, gifted, quote unquote, anointed people are women. And especially in my community. Y'all, come on. I got a lot of black people come to this channel. Y'all know what I'm talking about. All right, let me pull him up from South Africa. Just give me a minute, ladies and gentlemen. I gotta find it. Okay, let's go. Yep, I got it. But I want a good video of him. I don't just want a sloppy video. So give me a minute to find out. Oh, well, let me see here. We got him? Make sure we got him. Is this a clear video? Yes, it is. Okay. This video is from News Zoom Africa. So let's pull him up. I told you I'm a student of history. I study and I read. That's why I know his name, because I pay attention. You'll never catch me off guard on this channel, never. You'll never come on this channel and think you got me. If you think you got me, I know some stuff. That's all I'm going to say. All right. Oh, I'm sorry. He spoke at the tribute to Jesse Jackson. My bad. And he spoke at Operation Push. All right, let's bring him up here. He's the president of South Africa.
Which is 9,000 miles over 24 hours.
Wow.
And Jesse Jackson's story and relationship with South Africa can never be told in 2 minutes. So indulge me in my 30 minutes. I will tell the story. The people of South Africa are with you today as you lay to rest a great man, and as you celebrate a remarkable life that altered
all right, bro,
the moral direction of a nation and inspired the conscience of the world. We are here to join you as you say farewell to a man who carried a message of hope from the streets of Chicago to the streets of Soweto in Johannesburg. But today we are also here as South Africans to lay claim to Reverend Jesse Jackson as one of our own, and to say he does not belong to you only, he also belongs to us. but we lay claim on him because he first laid claim on us. He chose us. You may ask, how can a son of South Carolina belong to the people of Soweto? How can a man born in segregated African American or American South be claimed by the people of a faraway land that was bedeviled by the racist system of apartheid? Well, I'll tell you how, and I'll tell you why. Belonging is not determined by the soil on which you were born. Belonging is determined by the soil on which you choose to join the fight against an evil system in the long and painful years of our struggle, when the voices of our people were often silenced. Jesse Jackson chose to belong to us by raising his voice against apartheid on our behalf. When our cause was ignored and many would look away and walk away, he stood firm in his solidarity with us. He looked at the people he had never met and said, "Your pain is my pain. The chains that bind you are my chains. Your struggle for freedom is my struggle as well." And for this, the people of South Africa remember him not as a distant friend, but as a brother in the struggle for justice and freedom. That is why we claim him as ours too today. Jesse Jackson was an African. We lay claim to him because he was an African. Pledging his solidarity with our struggle did make him one of us, an African American. Ours, not only yours. He epitomized the image that was depicted by one of the key founders of the African National Congress, Pixley Kaisa Kaseme, who delivered a most famous speech in 1906 here in the United States when he was a student at Columbia University. And he said, "I am an African, and I set my pride in my race against a hostile public opinion. The brighter day is rising upon Africa. Already I seem to see her chains dissolved." That speech captured the spirit of African pride and hope. That is what Jesse Jackson meant to South Africa and Africa. Hence we stand here and say he belongs to us. Jesse Jackson stood with the people of South Africa during our darkest days and hours against apartheid. He told the world that the struggle for dignity in the United States was inseparable from the fight against apartheid and injustice in South Africa. When Jesse Jackson reminded the United States that its strength as a nation lies not in exclusion, but in the beautiful diversity of its people, black and white, rich and poor, urban and rural, workers and farmers, immigrants and the forgotten, we were hugely inspired by his message. Nelson Mandela and his comrades were hugely inspired too by Jesse Jackson whilst they were serving life sentences on Robben Island, as they observed how Jesse Jackson carried out our struggle for justice beyond the borders of the United States. He was a voice.
And I want to interrupt right here just to say this. Nelson Mandela and the entire African National Congress were on Robben Island. They were all sentenced to life in prison. And the reason why the judge did not execute them, and I've read several books, because he said he did not want to turn them into martyrs for the cause of freedom. It was Winnie Mandela, whom Nelson divorced later on, after he became the president, who kept the fight alive. For 27 years, she led the movement and she took the fight to the racist regime in South Africa. She was on the front line and she never gets the credit that she deserves. Stop playing. Just because you don't like something doesn't mean that it's not true. The annals of history must record the powerful women who stood alongside their husbands because they did not do it by themselves. Most men are self-centered, narcissistic, and egotistical, and they want to take credit for everything by themselves. Jackson wasn't that type of man. I'm going to tell you a story about my mother before I get back to Sorrel. God bless her soul. My mother transitioned into eternity from cancer when I was 12. But she had prepared me to become a man, a responsible man. And my mother was a Republican, a lifelong Republican, way back then. And I couldn't understand why until she sat me down and told me the difference between the Republican Party she knew and the Dixiecrats, who went on to rebrand themselves and call themselves Democrats. You know, the Dixiecrats were the original racist, bigoted, segregated party in America. And the Republican Party was just the opposite. My, how things change, but they remain the same. Y'all can't, and we can't afford to sit this election out. Because if you do, you're going to be sorry. They're going to lie. They're going to try to cheat. They're going to try to steal it. They're going to try to pass all type of ungodly laws to try to prevent the masses of people from voting. Handle your business. Get the proper ID, proper certification. Make sure that when you go to the voting booth, when they ask for something, yes, right there, bam. Birth certificate, what else you want? Yeah, real ID, pow. Driver's license, pow. ID card, pow. Anything else you want? What you want? My baby fingerprints, my baby footprints? You want a DNA sample on my blood? What do you want? See, you got to take the fire away from your enemy. As long as your enemy knows that you fear them, they got you. That's why they believe in disarmament. But psychological warfare is far greater than a person who has a gun. Because too many stupid people have guns and they don't know how to use their minds. I want to get back to this gentleman right here. He was the second he's the third black president of South Africa. This president right here was disrespected when they brought him to Washington, when he came to Washington, D.C. He was disrespected, belittled, and talked down in the White House. Do you remember? Over some so-called reverse racism. Are you serious? Since when were white people ever discriminated against in South Africa? They were doing the discriminating. Since when were white people ever discriminated against in America? Unless they were compassionate, caring people who helped black people, then their own people turned on them the way a hyena turns on its own prey. I lost my feed. I'm an emotional type brother, and I don't mind standing for what is right. And I'm going to do it until the day I get off this earth.
A voice that refused to be silenced when silence would have been easier. A voice that
Don't worry about
preached
my
a
hair.
message of hope
Be concerned about your
from
own
the
hair.
streets of Chicago to the dusty streets of Guguletu in Cape Town in South Africa.
Yeah.
That justice was not a privilege for the few, but a birthright for all. His rallying call, "Keep hope alive," became a compass of our struggle and gave us hope for victory over the evil system of apartheid, exclusion, division, and oppression. Jesse Jackson expressed his solidarity with us when he visited for the first time South Africa and came to Soweto 47 years ago after the killing of Steve Biko in apartheid police cells. He drew massive crowds at rallies in Soweto, where he famously declared, as though he was a prophet, and indeed he was. He said, "This land is changing hands." When the Reagan administration chose constructive engagement, diplomatic language for doing nothing,
You got that
Jesse
right.
Jackson chose unconditional solidarity with the oppressed majority in South Africa. He became the most visible American public figure advocating for comprehensive pressure and economic sanctions against apartheid South Africa. By placing South Africa at the center of American electoral politics during his presidential election campaign, Jesse Jackson influenced millions of voters to confront apartheid as their moral responsibility too. He led many marches here in the United States, and in 1985 was arrested with his two sons, Jesse Jr. and Jonathan, outside the South African embassy. They were arrested, and as they were arrested, they sang the song which Stevie Wonder rendered here, "We Shall Overcome." It was a song that became part of our struggle freedom songs, from which we drew inspiration. He took the fight against apartheid globally. On the 2nd of November, 1985, he marched with the ANC President Oliver Tambo, anti-apartheid movement President Trevor Huddleston, and more than 150,000 people in what was one of the largest anti-apartheid demonstrations ever held in Britain. Not only did he march in the streets, he walked into the corridors of power. He opened doors, and when the doors were closed, he kicked them down. He personally lobbied international leaders. He lobbied Pope John Paul II to visit South Africa and hasten change. He pressed Mikhail Gorbachev to cut all Soviet diplomatic ties with Pretoria. He challenged Margaret Thatcher to her face. She refused to budge, but he did not stop. When Nelson...
Hold up, I'm not going to let you get away with saying that about Jesse Jackson. Let me make something clear to you, at Salty. Why don't you talk about the avowed bigots and racists that are running Washington, D.C. right now. Just because you don't like Jesse Jackson or don't like black people who stand up for themselves and stand up for others and speak for those who are less unfortunate voices in society, who fight for the weak, fight for the poor, fight for the rights of all to have freedom, justice, and equality. Just because you don't like that, and you probably are a part of MAGA. The reason why I don't like MAGA is not because of people. I don't like what they stand for. That's what I don't like. See, it's not personal with me. I'm dealing with the principles behind it. The dog whistles, the coded messages, the symbolic language as if idiocy is running throughout the world and people can't decipher to what they're saying. The Republican Party does not stand for freedom, justice, and equality. The Republican Party stands for racism. The Republican stands for bigotry. The Republican Party stands for Jim Crow. That's what they want. They want to reinstitute slavery by a different name. And until it's brought to your doorfront, your friends, your family, your neighbors, that's how people like you think. It's always the oppressor who does the oppressing to others, telling them to shut up, it don't hurt. Well, suppose it was flipped around. You're not going to get away with talking about Reverend Jesse Jackson like that. Not on this program, because I'm not going to have it. I don't care what your personal preference is or your bigotry or your hate. You don't have to like Al Sharpton. Al Sharpton probably doesn't like you. You don't even have to like me. I don't care if people don't like me, but they will respect me. That's the bottom line. Now I'm going to go back and handle the business at hand.
Not only did he march in the streets, he walked into the corridors of power. He opened doors, and when the doors were closed, he kicked them down. He personally lobbied international leaders. He lobbied Pope John Paul II to visit South Africa and hasten change. He pressed Mikhail Gorbachev to cut all Soviet diplomatic ties with Pretoria. He challenged Margaret Thatcher to her face. She refused to budge, but he did not stop. When Nelson Mandela finally walked free in 1990, after 27 years of imprisonment, Jesse Jackson was there in Cape Town, witnessing a moment the world would never forget. He described the atmosphere as a release of glee and joy, as millions celebrated not only the freedom of a man, but the rising hope of a nation, the South African nation. In 1994, he was present when Nelson Mandela became the first democratically elected president of South Africa. Jesse Jackson kept returning after 1994, when many of his contemporaries moved on. We claim Jesse Jackson as one of our own because he never saw the struggle of the people of South Africa as a distant or foreign cause, but as a struggle that belonged to him as well. His greatest gift to the oppressed people of South Africa was the courage he gave us to believe that we must never surrender hope, that justice would prevail and freedom would come. He encouraged us not to lose hope in the face of oppression, not to lose hope in the face of injustice, to have hope that ordinary people standing together would write their own history of triumph against apartheid. The life of Reverend Jesse Jackson reminds us that the struggle for justice is never the work of a single lifetime. It is a long and noble journey that is carried forward across generations. In fact, it is a relay in which the torch of freedom is passed from one generation to another. Martin Luther King Jr. lifted that torch and gave the world a dream of justice and equality. Jesse Jackson carried that dream forward with hope, keeping its flame alive in the hearts of those who refuse to surrender to injustice. And Nelson Mandela carried that dream into freedom, helping to build a rainbow nation where dignity and liberty could belong to us all. And so today, that torch still burns. It is now in our hands to guard it, to carry it forward and to ensure that the dream of justice continues to light the path for generations yet to come. Now we must ask ourselves as we are gathered here, how can we honor the life and the memory of Jesse Jackson? We honor him by carrying forward the values that he lived for: justice, dignity, equality, by committing to a lifetime of service to others, by showing up when others look away from injustice, when they fear to stand up to power, and when they walk away from suffering, by pledging solidarity and using every opportunity to support the just struggle of others, and by ensuring that there is justice for all, by keeping hope alive, what Jesse Jackson taught us. Today we honor a man whose voice stirred the conscience of leaders and ordinary people, whose courage strengthened movements across the world, and whose faith never wavered, even when the road was long and difficult. To our mother, Jacqueline Jackson, to his children, we would like to say the following. We, as the people of South Africa, are here to say thank you. The African National Congress, the organization I lead, with which Jesse Jackson worked closely with, also says thank you. We are here not only in mourning, but in gratitude, deep, abiding, and unrepayable gratitude. You gave us your husband, your father, your patriarch. You shared him across an ocean and across continents, across marches and prison gates and inauguration days. When South Africa needed a friend in the corridors of power, you allowed Jesse Jackson to be that friend. His support meant that when our people were tear-gassed in Soweto, someone in America was weeping with us. It meant that when our leaders sat in prison cells on Robben Island, someone was standing in the capitals of the world in Washington and in London, saying Nelson Mandela and his comrades are not terrorists or criminals. They are freedom fighters, and saying that the world must listen and act. We are grateful that on the day that Nelson Mandela walked free, on that historic and miraculous day, Jesse Jackson was standing in the sunlight with us. Not because it was required of him, but because it was in him to witness the emergence of the South Africa he had campaigned for, a South Africa he had been arrested for, that he struggled for and prophesied about in Soweto in 1979. We honor him for his enduring commitment, his expression of real love, sacrificial love. The commitment he displayed did not wait to be invited. It made him simply show up. And Jesse Jackson always showed up without anyone's permission. He showed up for South Africa, and he showed up again and again and again. Long after the cameras had moved on, long after sanctions were won, long after apartheid had been defeated and relegated to the ash heap of history, Jesse Jackson kept coming back to express his gratitude. As a free nation, South Africa awarded him the Order of the Companions of O.R. Tambo, one of the highest honors that we bestow on someone who struggled with us. But truth be said, no medal, no honor, no citation is important enough to express what Jesse Jackson gave and meant to us. What he gave to us cannot be framed and hung on a wall. It lives in our Constitution today. It lives in our freedom. It lives in the hearts of our people. That is why we are here today, to carry Jesse Jackson's spirit home with us. For the hope he nurtured, the courage that he inspired, and the solidarity that he showed to our people must not end with this moment. It must continue to inspire us in our shared journey to build a better life for our people. So on behalf of 62 million freedom-loving South Africans, we say thank you. We say, go well, Reverend, go well. The ancestors, Martin Luther King, John Lewis, Malcolm X, Nelson Mandela, Oliver Tambo, Winnie Mandela, and many others, both here and in South Africa, have been waiting to embrace you. And we, the people of the Rainbow Nation, that you, Jesse Jackson, helped to build, salute you, and we say power to you. But we also say, rise, African Jesse Jackson, rise. And we say, rest, African Jesse Jackson, and thank you, we thank you eternally for your support for our struggle. Thank you to all of you. Thank you.
Alloy sink wrench for tight spaces. A set of 2, 7 notches. Fits various hose screw sizes.
I wanted to show a couple more, but I'll have to make a couple more parts to this video. That's going to be it for today. For those of you who came on board, thank you for joining. Celebration of life service for the late Reverend Dr. Jesse L. Jackson. Never surrender. Never quit.